Please be seated, thank you. We are going to begin the funeral service for Mrs. Barbara S. Shapiro. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it in the silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome anybody and friends who are visiting us via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you as well. Services will be conducted by Rabbi Andrea London of Beth Emmet, the Free Synagogue in Evanston.
As we gather together today to mourn the loss of Barbara Senn Shapiro, we also come to celebrate a life of 92 years, a life that was not always easy, but which she lived courageously and with resilience, always curious, asking many, many questions, and growing throughout her life. What a gift her life was to all who knew and loved her. And so today we gather to pay tribute and to honor her memory. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimini ba'alamot, lechen samach libi ve'egel kivodi, apis orish kol navetach. I've set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult, my soul rejoice, my being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. Death has taken our beloved Barbara. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Barbara's love that united us in life and which death cannot sever, for her companionship that we shared along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks to God. In this time of grief, we listen to the voice of our sacred scriptures that brings us the ever-new message of God's nearness. It tells us of our kinship with the Creator, in light as in darkness, in joy as in sorrow, in life as in death. I'd like to invite Barbara's son-in-law, Bob, for Psalm 23.
Adonai rohi lo eksar bino teshet yarbitseni al me menuchot yenachaleni nafshi Yeshovev, Yancheni memaglet tzedek, Yancheni memaglet tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech B'geit Maved lo ira raki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha chema yenachamu uni taharoch Lefanai, Shulchan Neged Sorerai, Dishanta Vishemen Roshi Kosi Veravaya Achtov Chesed Yirdefuni Cho Yemei Chayai Yemei Chayai Vishavti Beveit Adonai Leorech Yamim Adonai Roi Lo Exar Adonai Roi Lo Exar. That's for you, Babs.
Together in English, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai ma'on atai telanu b'dor v'dor, terem harim yud ladu v'tcholal eretz v'tevel, u'me'olam ad olam ata el. O God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity you are God. You return us to dust, you decree, return you mortals, for in your sight 1,000 years are as yesterday when it has passed, as a watch in the night. You engulf us in sleep. We are like grass that renews itself. At daybreak it flourishes anew. At dusk it withers and dries up. The span of our life is 80 years and 10, or given strength 80 years. But the best of those years have trouble and sorrow. They pass by speedily, and we are in darkness. Teach us, therefore, so to number our days that we may attain a heart of wisdom. Turn to us, O God. Show mercy to your servants. Satisfy us at daybreak with your steadfast love, that we may sing for joy all our days. Let your deeds be seen by your servants, your glory by their children. May your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it may long endure. Barbara was blessed to have many more than 80 years of life, and we now are going to take this opportunity to pay tribute to that life. A life that had its challenges and had its love and joys and successes. A life that she lived with great courage and with resilience. Oh God, we thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed on all that she touched. To reflect on her life, I'd like to invite first her daughter, Lori Shapiro Gonzalez.
Wow, a lot of people in here. Okay, so under the best of circumstances, talking in a group like this is not my strong suit, so bear with me, and here I go. First of all, thank you all for coming. My mom loves this. Well, not funerals per se, but she loves families and friends together and strong connections. And so thank you for being here for her and for us. So in thinking about what I wanted to say, I tried to come up with the word that described my mom. Rabbi London mentioned it already, and all I could come up with was synonyms of courageous. My mom was a strong, brave woman. She got a lot thrown at her in life, and she faced it with a lot of bravery. My father, for those of you who may not know, was diagnosed with a terminal illness when I was 2, and Bobby was 5, and Debbie was 8. And she took care of him for 5 years and us, and then was left to raise us as a single mom. I guess I'll just say I think we turned out okay. So we'll start with that premise. But when I became a parent to my precious boys, Elijah and Zach, I was lucky enough to raise them with my incredible husband. And it was very, very apparent to me how much courage it took her to do that alone. I know she was proud of how we turned out, the man and the women that we've become. But I hope she was proud of herself, and I hope she appreciated what strength and bravery it took for her to do what she did. So when I was thinking about and sifting through as memories as one does in these situations, and what did I want to share with all of you, the thing that stood out was something I'm going to share, which I am a dog person through and through. I'm a dog lover. My brother and sister will be happy to share embarrassing stories of I probably thought I was a dog when I was very young, or wanted to be one. I don't know, but nobody that knew me from probably the moment I could talk didn't know that I wanted a dog. I really, 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 really wanted a dog. But we lived in an apartment in the city of Chicago that did not allow dogs. And hats off to you, Mom. She tried. She, through a series of fish, birds, Debbie's favorite gerbils, to which I even made little collars and leashes. But I mean, I think you're getting the slightly sad picture. So what I learned later in life was that, and my mom and I had some beautiful time around this when she told me, but when my father died, she went to our landlord, who was one tough cookie, and she mustered the courage, and she went to her, and she lobbied for me, and she pleaded and said that, Lori, it's been told to me, and I know that Lori needs a dog. And despite the fact that the answer was no, and I didn't, that just is a very powerful piece that has stayed with me, that she went to bat for me like that. And my boys will tell you, my mama bear instincts, I get them from her. So that being said, I know my mom was so happy for me when finally in adulthood, I had my dogs. And while this might seem a little bit odd, I know my mom would want me to do it, and she would approve. So I'm going to give a little shout out to some very important dogs in our lives. So to the late Bear, Gem, Slider, Buddy. I didn't know if I could say that one without crying. My siblings' dogs, the late Malcolm, the late Pache, who Grandma insisted was Pache, and to her beloved Timothy, and also to the Ness and Shapiro's dog, Ruby Tuesday, to our dogs at home in California who really wanted to be here. Opie, Zach and Emmy's Rexy, and Mina and Elijah's Benny, who are providing support in this difficult time in the ways only a dog can. And even in these last few tough months, I could sometimes get a smile from my mom showing her pictures of the dogs and telling her about their nutty antics. Mom, we got our dogs. So flipping over to the human side briefly, you're going to hear this a lot probably in the next few conversations or talks people are going to be giving. But my mom was a great grandmother, literally a great grandmother, but she was a great grandmother. She loved all of her grandkids fiercely, and she got that right back. And I loved how my relationship grew and strengthened in the context of parenting my kids with her as their grandmother. We didn't live close, except for a few brief years that we lived in Chicago, but it didn't matter. She visited. We have so many special memories, so many special trips. And there's a limited time here, so all I'll say is, despite her back problems are probably part of the reason contributing to her back problems, she probably sat in more uncomfortable basketball gyms, baseball field bleachers, folding chairs in school auditoriums to sit with me throughout California, Tennessee, and Chicago, cheering on my boys and beaming with pride. And I know that you carry that with you. And her relationship with you is a true, pure source of joy for me. So before I finish, I just wanted to make a mention of these last few years actually have been a very difficult journey for my mom. And Debbie, Bobby, and I were lucky enough to meet some individuals along the path that I just want to acknowledge, especially in really troubling times in our world. Just people who bolstered my faith in humanity, and just a reminder that there's so much goodness in people and so many good people. So thank you to the caretakers, the hospice workers, one very special ambulance driver, and for your patience and kindness with my mom, and for all you do in the world for so many people. Mom, wherever you are, I know they've already put you in charge of making sure everyone has a place to park and that you're enforcing the rules. I love you, Mom. I'm so grateful you're at peace.
And now I'd like to invite Barbara's son, Bobby, to speak.
As I just told Lori, it's going to be hard to follow that. My mom lived one hell of a life. She was born right at the start of the Great Depression, and that was somewhat symbolic, as it turned out, as Lori described, and the rabbis described, a long and rocky journey. Before she was even 1 year old, my grandparents took her on a train trip from Chicago to California. A swaddled baby on a train and a cross-country trip probably wouldn't have been a big deal, but 2 days before they got on the train, the Lindbergh baby had been kidnapped, and all the other passengers on the train kept looking at the swaddled baby and my grandparents, and wondered, one, if she was the Lindbergh baby, and two, if she was the Lindbergh baby, what they should do about it. From that auspicious early misadventure, they went to LA to maybe live there, but my grandfather convinced my grandmother to move back to Hyde Park, where she grew up with her cousins and her friends, Janet and Jerry and Joan and Hope, from when they were 5 years old and five of them remained very lifelong friends, even though their paths started to diverge. Instilled with concerns about injustice in this world, my mother was at the University of Wisconsin, and she chose to join an American Friends Services committee program in Mexico in one of the summers, I think, of sophomore, junior year, to try to improve people's lives in Mexico. And she came back really with what became a lifelong commitment to social justice. And she also, when she came back that fall, waiting in line to see a play or a movie, I can't remember which, she met Harvey, was introduced to Harvey, and they fell in love and got married. And as Lori alluded to, there was my mom with her handsome young husband, 3 kids under 10, and then we were about to probably move to Highland Park or Glencoe or wherever. But my father was diagnosed with a serious illness, multiple sclerosis, they said. He quickly became paralyzed, eventually became hospitalized, and died in 5 very tough years. Bobby Chapman reminded me this morning of just the image of my mother. We had about 10 stairs up our back porch on Roscoe Street in the backyard, and we had built, Justin Wexler actually had built this hand crank chain thing to pull the wheelchair up the 10 stairs. And there was my mother every time pulling that crank contraption. It was, as Lori said, it took courage that, we appreciated a little bit when we became adults. You appreciate more now when you reflect on it. Then my dad died, and that's when my mother, as Lori noted, showed her courage. She had started working to be closer to us, I think, or as a teacher's aide at our school. And she didn't work with us, but she worked with a lot of the kids in the school, helping them that were having problems reading and with math, and what we probably today would call a special ed aid or something. And this June, I was at we had our 50th grammar school reunion, and several of the kids of my classmates came up and told me how much my mother had meant to them in their upbringing. Even one saying, my own mother was touch and go, and I really considered your mother my mother. And even though Lori alluded to she had a tough time for the last couple of years, I came back and told her those stories, and she could really appreciate them, and that really was sort of moving to her and important that she had influenced those people's lives. And that time when she was a teacher's aide, while she was helping these other kids, her own son, that was me, was not helping out really, because I was a bit of a troublemaker, I guess, and I got in a lot of trouble. But just like in those other kids, she didn't lose faith in me, and I think, as Lori said today, even though she doesn't always say it, Lori, not my mother, that I did eventually make, honor that faith and make her proud. A story that kind of reminds me of kind of my mother and my relationship. I took a year off law school in 1983, and I was a field organizer for Gary Hart's presidential campaign. And in late December of 1983, those of you who grew up in Chicago might remember it was the frigidest winter ever. Since then, I think there was one more, and when Hannah went back to Northwestern, that was almost as cold. But for the last 2 weeks in December, the high temperature, forget the wind chill, was -10 or -15. And we had to get 50,000 signatures or something to get Gary Hart on the Illinois ballot, which the Democratic machine didn't want him to do because they were from Mondale. And I didn't really know anyone else, so I recruited my mom, and we'd get on the CTA and go downtown and try to go in the tunnels near the Chicago Public Library. So we went freeze to death, and people couldn't even sign outside because it was so cold. And the Chicago police would come, and are they going to arrest my mother, 53 years old? And they probably would have, but they just kind of shoot us along, and then we'd go back in another door. And Dottie Lynch, who was Gary Hart's pollster, said, and I can't remember when exactly she said it, but she was quoted saying that Gary Hart would not have been on the ballot in Illinois except for Bobby Shapiro's mother. And Gary called and thanked her. Back when we had phones, remember we had those things, they rang. But she didn't care about that. She just enjoyed kind of going downtown with me and having fun and having an adventure with me. So a few years after that, another story that exemplifies my mom's kind of commitment to family and children, grandchildren. We were at my cousin Mara's wedding, and her brother, Mara's dad, was balking at the idea of walking his daughter down the aisle for her wedding because her brother's new wife didn't want to be left out, and my mom took my uncle. I didn't realize how long. I thought it was just for an hour, but apparently it was the day before the wedding, the day of, and just took him in a room and read him the riot act. And for those of us who grew up with us on Roscoe Street, my mom could read some of the riot act. Mostly me and mostly every night, but my uncle was a stubborn fellow too, and he kept resisting and resisting, and she kept persisting and persisting. And by the time I got to the wedding a little late, I did get there in time to see my uncle walk Mara down the aisle. Despite all the hardships, my mom did get a lot of joy out of little things. She loved coming to visit us. She loved beaches anywhere, but since we had a house on the beach, she would come every summer to the Cape, and we'd walk endlessly for miles, finding seashells, which was one of her passions, along the seashore. Sandy points out, if her name had been Sally, I could have done the Sally sells seashells by the seashore. But and then after her longer life partner than my father, Marty, died around 2006. I started coming to Chicago more often for work and things, but mostly just to come and see her, and we'd go out to dinner at different restaurants, and we really got close and talked about all of her passions, my passions. She's very into gun control. Going back, can't remember who reminded me, Sam, I think, reminded me this morning, when Bobby Kennedy got shot in 1968, I thought I had been somewhat involved in it, but I'm sure it was my mother. At Nettlehorse, we had a give back your toy guns thing where we all threw our toy guns into the box, and there's a picture in the Tribune that I think's on my Facebook page of me throwing my toy guns in the box. So, that is the charity that we chose was a anti-violence charity, Chicago Cred. But we talked about everything, and we talked about my cousins, her kids, my kids, my nephews, my nieces, grandnephews, grandnieces, friends. We always talked about our two Senn cousins in Washington who one had a brilliant political career, and the other has a glowing and continuing political career there. And she loved that because she loved the politics. And I'll just end on what Lori said and everyone's going to say. She was a grandmother to her grandchildren like no other. And I know to my kids, she instilled confidence in them, and Lori said it was shared parenting, but I would give her all the credit for kind of parenting my kids, because I'm not sure we did such a good job at that. When I spoke 35 years ago at my Nana's funeral, and I said, as the rabbi didn't say, my grandmother died at 80, and I said, and I really, for my grandmother, that was way too young. My mom has now died at 92, although 97 is what she insists was her age. But you kind of laugh, but she would say to me as recently as 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was born in 1931, just do the math. I'm 97. Anyway, Mom, I'll miss you. I love you. Thanks.
I'd now like to invite Barbara's grandson, Sam, to speak.
Hello. Happy Hanukkah. To me, Hanukkah always meant an email from Grandma sending her love and letting me know that the Hanukkah gelt was en route every year, without fail. My birthday in the summertime, along with hers, meant another email with more well wishes asking what I wanted as a gift. Every time I wrote back saying I didn't need anything, and every time another check would come in the mail. Whenever anything was going on in my life, she would write with her love. Before a high school jazz band competition, she wrote me, "Hi, Sam, sending good vibes to you for tomorrow. Just relax, enjoy, and have fun as though it is just one of your regular jazz band performances. Love and hugs, Grandma." When I was struggling in college and 10 years ago and about to leave for a year, heading straight from snowy Rhode Island to a family scuba in Belize, she wrote, "Just a note to say hi and let you know that I heard about your decision to take a gap year and let you know I am here to support you in whatever way I can. I know that you will find something to do that will stimulate and excite you and enhance some of your interests, strengths, and the special qualities that you possess. Have a fun time. It will be nice to get away from the ice and snow and enjoy the warm sunshine. I love you." That was typical Grandma. She gave nothing less than unconditional love and support from afar. Emails, phone calls, family Zoom calls later on. No measure of distance or technical difficulties could stop her from sending her love, her updates, her forwarded jokes and articles, and her encouragement for my future. When she could, she would always come to see my piano recitals and plays and graduations. She cherished me and my sister as she did all her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Visiting Chicago meant joy because it meant cousins and aunts and uncles. It meant Thanksgivings and Seders. It meant the distinct feeling of the sun on the balcony and on the tiles and rugs in that famous apartment on the 14th floor. It meant Scrabble and Scrabble and Scrabble. It meant photo albums, seeing just how much Lori looked like Hannah, how much Harvey looked like Daniel. It meant Marty and his boundless gentleness. She defined family for me. Her apartment was our family's capital. So, Grandma, thank you for everything. Thank you for being the true constant in our lives, our matriarch and our backbone. Thank you for taking me to the Field Museum exhibit of maps. Thank you for coming to Hamilton with me. You couldn't understand a word they were rapping. You couldn't understand a word they were rapping, but you smiled the whole way through. Thank you for giving me your car. Whenever you asked how it was in more recent times, I'd say, the same, no new issues. I can finally tell you that I totaled it on the highway. Don't worry, I'm all right. We didn't have the heart. I mean, it was the prudent decision not to tell you until now. But thank you for your sense of justice. I just learned now from my father you were a teacher's aide, or what we'd call a special needs aide, and I spent a summer being an aide with severe special needs kids, and I guess I tried to act like you. You always advocated for those less fortunate. You never suffered fools and/or Republicans. You proudly showed me the woven plastic bags that your friend, your lifelong friend, Eunice, Japanese-American woman who lived through internment as a child, had made. Thank you for raising my dad and his sisters to be the people they are. I know it can't have been easy, alone for so long. Above all, thank you for your confidence and your conversation, your wit and your humor. You are a great friend. Now you can relax. It will be nice to get away from the ice and snow and enjoy the warm sunshine.
Now I'd like to invite her grandson, Nathan, to speak.
Now I can see who's here. So I have 2 copies. I'll explain it later. Okay. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'm Nathan, grandchild number 2, one in a long line of computer technicians. In great company with Sam, Uncle Bobby, Uncle Ray, my mother, basically everyone here at one point or another probably assisted my grandmother with a technological issue. So thank you for your service. Okay, so I guess let's start here. I know some may dispute me, but by all objective measures established by me, my grandma was a pretty amazing and adaptable user of technology, considering that she didn't use a computer until her late 60s, even switching from PC to Mac in her late 70s. She had sworn to us she would never get email, and then I remember this day, one day she showed up at our house, I think probably for Shabbat dinner, and announced that she got an AOL email address all by herself. It was bshap3131@aol.com, short for Barbara Shapiro and her birth year twice. The only problem was that when you emailed bshap3131, it didn't get to her. Why not, might you ask? Was this whole email thing a hoax? Well, apparently on a typewriter, it doesn't matter whether you type an L or a 1, but funny enough, it does on a computer. However, did she change it? No. Did she neurotically tell everyone for the following 2 decades plus to be sure they were L's and not 1s? She definitely did. When I called her on the phone, which I did often, the conversation would sometimes go like this. Hi, Grandma. Nathan, I'm so happy you called. How are you? Terrible. What's wrong? Something crazy happened to my icons and they're all out of order. I can't find the AOL button. Or when I'd be in town and we'd meet for lunch, she'd say, don't let me forget, after lunch, I have a question about my computer. When we finally got to it, she'd write down my instructions to fix the problem very carefully in her illegible handwriting with a pencil on a piece of scrap paper. She was the queen of scrap paper. My mom told me she found mountains of scrap paper in her apartment. That God knows if she could ever read what she wrote or find again. But we all learn in our own ways, right? My grandma never met a customer service representative who didn't give her exactly what she wanted. As this is now my profession, I know that this wasn't by luck. This was pure skill. She used the don't get off the phone until you get what you want method with great expertise. She may possibly be the only person in the history of Comcast to pay less annually in 2019 than she did in 1988. My mom told me the other day that it was shockingly easy to cancel her Comcast account. Mom, I have a new theory. I think as much as Comcast love Grandma, they can actually now close an entire call center and devote those resources to other purposes. She was our absolute biggest fan. She never missed Daniel's baseball games, rain or shine, bundled up with a big umbrella, any of my concerts or plays, even when they were extremely mediocre, which was most of them, or Sylvie's prolific number of dance shows. You could always spot her and Marty dragging their lime green lawn chairs, which are probably worth a lot of money these days, across the soccer field. Some of the time, I don't think she actually had any idea what was going on, though neither did I, especially at sporting events. But it didn't matter. 3 of her 7 most favorite humans in the universe were doing something she was proud of. So she was there, with bells on, and several logistical questions. She cared deeply about me and my friends and everything going on in my life. She asked a lot of questions. It's a theme. And she really wanted to know. We emailed almost every day, especially once I left for college, and she'd always follow up to ask about something she knew was important to me or converse about political rants, GMOs, Monsanto, guns, Republicans. And of course, she sent every food recall email she received, just in case that brand was one I consumed regularly. I literally can say I don't think I ever was true, but I was grateful for the care. If I or my siblings or cousins took an interest in something, even for a brief time, she was immediately there with article clippings, email forwards, and field trips whenever possible. She always told me how much she appreciated us taking the time to see and talk to her. She loved her growing family too. Her grandchildren-in-laws, her 5 great-grandchildren, Orly, Naomi, Kate, Jack, and Andy. Seeing pictures of them on her iPad, which honestly, that was the only purpose of her iPad, and each of their births brought her so much joy. She was truly a remarkable person. She had a really difficult adulthood, raising 3 kids on her own, and she knew her limitations of what she could do with us grandchildren. And sometimes, recognizably, our other grandparents could do things that she couldn't. But I never once heard her complain. Well, she complained about a lot of things, but especially the Winston Towers Condo Association. But she was more than content with her lot. In fact, she was thrilled. I came out to her on the drive home after going to see the movie Milk together. I wrote a facepalm emoji because could I make it any more obvious? I was nervous, but not really, and after I told her, she said, "I know, I love you, I don't care," and gave me this look like, "Could you tell me something I didn't already know?" And then I swear it was getting dangerously into forgetting to ask about my computer territory, so we moved quickly on to regularly scheduled programming. I remember the first time I drove her, she was so proud. And many of us know Grandma had many great skills, but it was likely safer for 16-year-old Nathan with a newly minted license to be driving us. So I think it also came with a sigh of relief from my parents. As you heard from Sam, she never forgot a birthday milestone or anniversary. In fact, she'd typically call the day before just in case she missed you or something came up. Lord knows what would come up that she couldn't call you. But it just emphasized more how important we all were to her. And of course, for many years, her signature move was to send you a Blue Mountain e-card until she was their only remaining customer. She also would send checks, as Sam referenced, in the mail for celebrations, and then make sure you told her when they arrived, when you deposited them, so she could immediately balance her checkbook. And if you made fun of her about this or anything, she'd say, "You're being fresh." If any of you thought that my Uncle Dick, her brother, was the one in the CIA, he was actually just trying to throw you off the path to finding my grandma. She was the world's best private investigator. And once she had the internet, good luck to you. And by private investigator could also mean thorough researcher. "Hi, Grandma. How was your flight?" "Good." "Yes, it was good." "Were you on time?" "We were, but you already knew that." Or here's a brief paragraph from the extensive set of emails she sent me when I suggested several years ago to get my mom a KitchenAid mixer for her birthday. Hi, Nathan. Latest update on mixers. I called Macy's today, and they have the mixer in Willow Blue, which is lighter than Cobalt Blue. The $299 price is only good until Tuesday, November 3rd. You also get 10% more, which makes it $270, plus you get the bonus of a grinder and a shredder worth $49.99. Then I called Bed Bath & Beyond, specific store mention at Wilmette and Village Crossing, and their regular price is $299. You can use the 20% off coupon. It goes on and on and on. And then it closes with, then also there is ordering it on the internet. Which to this day, I don't think she thinks her credit card was ever used on the internet, but. Okay, Macy's said they thought you could get the bonus on the internet too. It would allow you to print out the coupon and mail it in. I know us three, me, Daniel, and Sylvia, have fond memories of dinners with her and movies. We'd start the evening at Flat Top Grill, Pita Inn, which she called Casbah, which I think was a different Middle Eastern restaurant from growing up, or Chipotle, which she could never pronounce correctly. She called it Chipotle. Or Chinese food with Marty, who'd order chicken and pea pods without the pea pods and without the sauce, but insisted it was still chicken with pea pods. This was followed by a movie, which she would inevitably say she liked, but was a bit slapsticky for her liking. And then we'd head over to Smushies for ice cream. What is Smushies, you might ask? Smushies is what she called Cold Stone Creamery, or as Daniel reminded me, was Marble Slab Creamery, because she could never remember the name. But if you've been there, you know they smush the ice cream and the toppings together, so it makes total sense. Smushies. She also liked to take us shopping, often at Grandma's Mall, which we called Lincolnwood Town Center, across the street from her apartment complex. She had a credit card for every retailer, and I think 50% of my childhood was waiting for her to sift through her oversized purse, which was the cause of most of her physical ailments, to find her credit card collection, which then also needed to be flipped through. And alas, the Children's Place of blessed memory, credit card was found, and all was good in the world. Going to her house had some special features. The person who sold her futon, I don't know, God knows what year, told her it needed to be fluffed regularly. So she'd give us one of those mini Louisville Slugger bats, and we could hit it and take out all of our frustrations. We'd enjoy non-kosher treats like Dunkaroos, sherbet push pops, and a singular box of Lucky Charms that, in Daniel's words, said, "Welcome Tampa Bay Rays," which happened in 1998, and we were still eating the cereal definitely well into 2004. And all the challah toast with poppy seeds was imprinted with a Mickey Mouse mold. She had beautiful views, including one looking straight out at the Baha'i Temple in Wilmette. I thought it looked like the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. And as a little kid, I'd say, "Grandma, I can see Israel." When I got a bit older, one day she took me the 12-minute drive to Israel so I could see what it really was, and my mind was blown. She hosted a wonderful Thanksgiving with signature dessert being rainbow sherbet molded into a turkey shape topped with homemade chocolate sauce that only tasted good because it was made in a double broiler that had also been used by the Romans. I'll close out with a classic grandma email that encapsulates some of the most common themes. Feeling proud, keeping me informed on her professional and personal development activities, a weather update, and a quick, loving wellness check on the whereabouts of someone else in the family. Hi, Nathan. I'm so sorry I missed you. I always enjoy when you call so much. A lot better than watching our board meeting on Zoom. I was in the hallway doing my walking and didn't hear the phone ring. I kind of mixed a few together to get the idea. Shabbat Shalom, have a good weekend. Mom told me you are leading the Hillel Seder. We'll miss you, but know you will be enjoying it with your friends. If you are in charge, I know it will be great. I went to a computer class at the Skokie Library last night. It's called Be an Online Detective. all kinds of websites to find a variety of information. Right up my alley. We finally got some sunshine, but it is still cold. Talked to Aunt Lori yesterday. They had tornado warnings, and the kids got out early, and they all stayed in the basement for a while. Love and hugs, Grandma. Lastly, I want to thank my mom. Taking care of Grandma these past few years was not easy. She shared the load with her siblings who flew in often, ordered her food, and answered her many questions and supported everything she needed. Being here all the time came with its own mental load, and we all are so grateful for the love and care and coordination you provide. She told me the other day, I've always felt the most important thing is to be there and show up for people all throughout their life, and I feel like you've done that as best you could. We love you, Grandma. And I can explain now that I have 2 copies because whenever I would speak at something, as many of you know, my grandmother could not hear very well, so I would always print out a copy for her to read while I read it. So this is her copy, but I'll keep it.
That's great, Nate. Such beautiful, wonderful tributes. Barbara was raised in Hyde Park, where she had a tight-knit Jewish circle of friends. She had one brother, Dick. They used to spend summers in Michiana. After graduating from Hyde Park High School, she went to the University of Wisconsin, where she got a degree in psychology. And there, as we heard, she met Harvey through a mutual friend who introduced them. Their first date was to Spring Green, the Frank Lloyd Wright House. They married after college, but Harvey had to serve in Korea for 2 years, so she lived with her parents then. Together they had 3 children, as we know, Debbie, Bobby, and Lori, and Harvey died when they were still young. And a defining feature, as we've heard today, of Barbara's life was becoming a widow and a single mother. She went to work as a teacher's aide, as Bobby remembers, and later as an executive assistant. And after Harvey's death, she had a longtime partner, Marty. Barbara was somebody who evolved as she grew older. She was a wonderful grandmother, as we've heard, gave each of her 7 grandchildren confidence. She saw each one for who they were and encouraged them to be the best that they could. After a bout with breast cancer 30 years ago, she became kind of a health nut, a healthy eater, and she was in great physical shape. As we've also heard today, being involved in the world and social justice was an important part of her life. During her formative years growing up, she learned about the importance of caring for others. Her parents sponsored Jews escaping from Germany. And Eunice, who we heard about also, a Japanese American who had been interned in a camp during World War II. Barbara's parents hired her to be a babysitter for her and her brother. And when Barbara died, she was wrapped in a blanket that Eunice had crocheted for her. They had kept up a lifelong friendship. Barbara went to Mexico as a young person and learned Spanish and volunteered with children, and voting was very important to her. She was involved in a League of Women Voters, and Bobby remembers wearing placards for political candidates even before she went to try to get signatures for Gary Hart. Gun control, as we know, was an important issue for her, and she participated in the Million Mom March, wrote letters, raised money, and she was up on political issues, including politics in California, which she often updated Lori on. When she joined Beth Emmett, she became very involved with the Social Justice Committee, and in particular also with the Environment Committee. As we've heard, Barbara didn't have an easy life, raising 3 children after her husband died. And she used to be a worrier. She worried about her children, always wanting what would be the best for them. But she also had much enjoyment in her life. She enjoyed Scrabble, chocolate, the beach, and most importantly, family. Thanksgiving was her holiday. She liked to cook and have everyone over. And she also enjoyed bringing a different reading to the Seder every year. Barbara leaves a wonderful legacy of strength, courage, empathy, and open-mindedness. She raised 3 successful and loving children, and she instilled in them good values. We learn in the Jewish tradition the importance of kibud av, the aim of honoring father and mother, and Debbie, Lori, and Bobby, they lived that value so deeply that the three of them were together with Barbara when she died. A difficult moment, but how beautiful that they could be with each other and be with Barbara, just the way that she would want it to be. Whenever I would see Barbara, she would always catch me up on all of the grandchildren and also on Lori. For those of you who don't know, Lori and I go back even further than I go back with the Renders. We went to camp together in Hayward, Wisconsin some 45 years ago, and we're counselors together as well. And she used to love to share stories about everybody and her great pride in her children and her grandchildren. And of course, she had much to be proud of. What an incredible legacy I see sitting here in front of me today. Debbie and Bob, Bobby and Liz, Lori and Ray, Daniel, Emily, Nathan and Tal, Sylvie, Hannah, Sam, Elijah, and Zachary. And the great-grandchildren who aren't with us, but they're certainly with us in spirit and in Barbara's spirit. Boy, did she love being a great-grandmother. Orly, Naomi, Kate, Jack, and Annie. Barbara leaves quite a tremendous legacy. She was so proud of each and every one of you, and you deserved that great pride. She raised wonderful children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Despite the difficulty, she leaves behind a legacy of love and of kindness and of wonderful human beings in the world. To the Gonzalez, Shapiro, and Render family, I extend my love and my condolences to you. I'm so glad that you've been in my life and that Barbara was in my life as well. She was a wonderful woman and a woman with a great deal of pride and love. May that be the legacy that you keep in your hearts at this moment. Zichronah livracha, may her memory always be for a blessing as you continue to share the stories and laugh together, and as you live by the legacy that she has set for you. Amen. We now take a moment to offer a silent prayer in our hearts for Barbara and for her family. I invite you to rise as you are able. El malay rachamim shochen bamromim hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina. Im kedushim utorim v'zohar ki amazirim et nishmat Ruth bat Yitzchak v'Sara shalcha la'olama. Baal harachamim yasireha b'seter kanafav la'olamim v'tzchor b'torah chaim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar. Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Barbara Senn Shapiro, daughter of Irving and Sylvia, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Amen. Please be seated.
This does conclude the service at the chapel. Shiva will be at the Render Residence, 3654 Davis Street in Skokie. They'll be beginning today at 3 o'clock until 5:30, and Saturday and Sunday beginning at 6:30, with minion services starting at 7 p.m. That information is on your folder as well as our website, so if you didn't get a folder when you entered the chapel, please get one when you leave. Interment will take place at Zion Gardens Cemetery in Chicago. The procession will be forming in the parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield. and we'll also attach a flag to the roof of your car. And please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you please step forward. Daniel Render, Nathan Render, Sylvie Render, Hannah Shapiro, Sam Shapiro, Elijah Gonzalez, and Zachary Gonzalez. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the family and the rabbi are escorted from the chapel. Pallbearers,